I'm trying to put myself in the place of our clients and to be honest with myself about my passion and where it all comes from and why this organization means so very much to me and why I've devoted 24 years and I feel like, I'm gonna retire from Habitat because I don't think I could go anywhere else and have the same amount of passion for the work. Welcome to Building Connection, a podcast from Habitat for Humanity of Greater Memphis. I'm Dwayne Spencer, President and CEO. I've been with Memphis Habitat now for 24 years. Every day, my team and I are focused on making affordable, healthy housing a reality for more people in our community through affordable mortgages, home construction, and home repairs for older homeowners. In my daily work, I often think about the connection between housing and so many other issues. The reality is, housing, your home, is connected to everything. Sometimes it just takes a little conversation to uncover it. With each episode, our guest and I will discuss the powerful impact of home. We'll explore a variety of topics, housing, of course, health, wealth, education, safety, but we'll always bring it back to home. The desire for a home, a place of security, rest, and renewal connects us all. So let's connect.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Building Connection. As you can see or hear, I'm not Dwayne Spencer. I'm Jessica Hord, Vice President of Brand Strategy here at Habitat for Humanity of Greater Memphis, and I work closely with Dwayne on this podcast. So today we're changing things up a bit. Dwayne is our guest for this special episode, right? We're recording this shortly before Christmas, depends on when y'all hear this, but we thought it might be a good time, or I thought it might be a good time for our audience to get to know Dwayne, to get to know you a little bit more and your story, why you're so passionate about Habitat for Humanity's mission, and why you wanted to launch this podcast. So I think we're going to cover a lot today, right?
I'm excited.
We've been talking for a long time at work. We worked together a long time. So this episode may be a little bit longer. But before we get into that, I want to introduce you. Because we don't usually read your full intro.
You're welcome to shorten that bio.
Okay. Well, you always read our guests' bios, so I'm going to read yours, okay?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Dwayne Spencer has worked in nonprofit management for 30 years. And since joining Memphis Habitat in 2001, he has grown the organization from a 9-member team to more than 70 employees, from a $1 million budget to about $25 million budget this year, and from building about 15 homes per year to 30 plus new homes a year, and serving 250 plus aging in place repair clients annually. Today, Memphis Habitat ranks among the top Habitat affiliates across the United States in terms of family served and home production. And locally, I know Dwayne is proud to share that through studies that we've conducted over the last few years with some local economists, Memphis Habitat is now able to demonstrate impressive local impact that we estimate at more than $366 million in cumulative impact here in the Memphis area since 1983. And we've helped over 600 families buy homes with affordable mortgages, and over 1,500, that's a new stat for you, over 1,500 aging in place clients in just the past 10 years. So Dwayne is very passionate about our work here in Memphis. He's involved locally with various groups and at the national level with Habitat for Humanity International. And in fact, last year in 2024, you were named among Memphis Magazine's CEOs of the Year, right? So welcome, Dwayne. It feels a little weird. It feels a little weird to say that. Welcome, Dwayne. Welcome to Building Connection, your own podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. So I appreciate you being game for turning the tables this time. But first, before we get deep into talking about Habitat and Habitat here in Memphis, let's talk about you, if you don't mind. I would like you to tell our audience a little bit more about your story and what brought you to Habitat for Humanity in the first place.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a long story. I'll try to shorten it for this broadcast. But, I grew up in what I would call poverty housing, just outside of Memphis, about 45 minutes outside of the city. And, I grew up in an old house with my grandmother and my mom and my youngest aunt. And it was in the 80s where we didn't have indoor plumbing, and we didn't have central air and heat. So I often say, the summers were hot and the winters were very cold. And, I remember, somebody would have to get up to make the fire to actually get the house warm in the winters. And we'd, pick up the wood from a big block, a stack of wood, and start the fire to get the house warm. And it was just one room. So, the rest of the house was pretty cold. And when I've told this story before, I have to keep reminding people that, I was born in 1967. So this was the 70s and the 80s. And these were not pioneer days when everyone lived that way. And I've had conversations with some friends later in life as I've started telling my story a little more. And they were like, oh, I didn't know you guys didn't have a bathroom. It's like, nope. That was my reality. And, I grew up with a lot of joy in my house. We were happy. I was never sad, but I had a lot of anxiety around the fact that we didn't have indoor plumbing. And I used to have this fear, probably an overwrought sort of concern, but I would have this fear that we were going to have a guest and they were going to ask, can I use your bathroom? And I always was like, what am I going to tell them? It never happened because I'm sure everyone who visited with us already knew. But just as a little kid, I wasn't aware of that. So I was filled with that anxiety and stress and what have you. But again, it was a happy childhood. And as I got older and tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I didn't know right away. But somehow, when I finally heard or discovered Habitat for Humanity, I thought mostly about the work that we were doing outside of the United States. I sort of correlated the housing conditions of families in South America or Guatemala with the conditions that I grew up in. And I thought, this feels like something that I could, be really passionate about. And so I volunteered a little bit in the 90s and then sought out an opportunity to actually work for the organization in the mid-90s. I interviewed for a fundraising job at this affiliate. I didn't get the job, as head of fundraising. That was fine. And then I went and did fundraising for another organization. And then just a few years later, this position came open. And of course, I thought, when the person recommended it, they were like, you had interest in Habitat at one time. Now they're looking for someone to lead the organization. And my first thought was, yes, I would love to work for Habitat, but I'm not sure I'm ready to actually lead the organization. It was much smaller, only 9 people, but still, being the leader, I didn't feel like I was really ready for that. However, I was encouraged to go ahead and drop my resume off. Remember back in the 90s?
Dropping it off? Yeah.
Printed resumes,
handed it to someone. Right?
Yeah. So I printed my resume up and wrote this great little cover letter without any help from ChatGPT. and and I dropped it off, and I got an interview. And I had worked for a couple of other nonprofits, and the whole time I had some opinion about how those nonprofits were managed. And I used to think, gosh, if I was in charge, I'd do this or I'd do that. And so when I got the interview with the Habitat board in 2001, most of what I talked about was aspirational because I had no, proof of my theories about what we could do to make the organization successful. But I had some ideas. I'm a creative person just by nature. And, that's what we talked about was maybe this, maybe that. I took a couple of ideas and I won them over.
Okay.
And like they say, the rest is history. Now it's, 24 years later, and it feels like, every year is sort of a new journey. Nothing's ever the same.
I would agree.
The mission is the same. Our goal, and you've been with us for 15 years or more, and you know the story. Every year, we're just trying to come up with new strategies, new ways to infuse more dollars to do more of what we want to do.
Right. Which
is build homes and sell them and then repair them. And fortunately, we are seeing the numbers grow, but it's just never enough. Right. It's never enough.
We've not solved it yet.
No.
That's for sure.
I don't think there's any solving it.
Right.
But we're going to play a small part in helping improve families' lives.
So I want to take you back real quick to one point in your story leading to Habitat, a turning point in your story, just because I know your story.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've only been sharing this a lot in the last few years.
Yeah.
And I think it's made a shift in the way we just talk about our work as an organization. But for you, there was a change from your living conditions that you've already talked about. You were a teenager, is that right? So talk a little bit about
the fire.
The shift for you. What happened for you when your housing conditions changed, and has that affected why you care so much about the mission?
I think so. I think the first thing I'll say before I get to the fire, which had a significant impact on me, was growing up in the house. I was sick a lot. And my mother often would tell me all the time, I used to have to, sit up with you as a child because you had bronchitis, you couldn't breathe. And she was a young nursing student and still probably at the time did not realize that it was the house that was making me sick. It was drafty, and it was true. She put the Vicks under my nose and on my chest to help me breathe. I really did have those breathing issues. And then when I was 16, we were here in Memphis at my aunt's house. And we got a call in the middle of the night, very early morning, that said our house was on fire. And so we rushed back out to Somerville, not knowing, what we were going to find. And when we got there, it was pretty much destroyed. It was just like, I remember it was a white house, a nice white house on a hill, and then all I saw was, black rubble. And it was devastating. And I think what's interesting about the whole situation, and when I'm telling this story, is sometimes it sounds like, and I have to remind myself and anyone that I'm telling the story to, I have to remind myself that I was happy in those conditions. I wasn't sad. It was just that, it was dilapidated housing, right? But when the fire destroyed it, it gave me a different perspective because it was still home. So my safety and refuge, regardless of the condition, was suddenly lost. I actually, slept on a couch in the bedroom with my mother. I didn't have my own private space. And, we'd make the bed up every night on the couch, and that's where I would sleep. I remember what it felt like. I remember the cushions and the little crack in the back of the couch. And suddenly that seemed perfectly fine and okay because I didn't even have that anymore after the fire. And so we walked through the fire, and we collected the things that we could, like books, Bible. I remember the Bible that my mother had given me when I was small, and she had a little inscription in the front, King James Version, and because it was folded, you could the edges were charred, but the inside was good. And same with our albums. They were all stacked very tightly, in this space in the house, and so the ones in the middle survived, and we took those with us. And I remember this. I don't know if you recognize that smell of a fire, after a fire. And even we took them with us to our new home, an apartment in a neighboring city. And I think the smell was just a reminder that things could have been different. We could have been there. Thank God we were not. And we were able to pick ourselves up and move into an apartment in another small town. But when we moved into the apartment, we actually had, a bathroom and a running water. And for the first time, I had my own bedroom. And so I could take a shower. I could sit in the bathtub for hours, which I did, and it was very different. And then I realized that our lives could be different and that there were other ways that we could live and opportunities and that we could dream for a better life, And so that sort of opened my eyes to just how my life could be with better physical conditions. It may seem like a small thing if you have grown up with your own space or bedroom. So for me to be able to walk into that bedroom, close the door, and just sort of sit in my own private space, it was huge. It really was. And that part in particular, I know is life-changing for the young people who we're serving today, who are also living in overcrowded conditions. They've never had a private space. Not just to study, which is important, but just to be themselves.
Yeah. To piddle around, as we like to say down here.
To be quiet and do whatever.
Right.
I remember my room was, the decorations were blue. Even though my favorite color is green. My mother decorated it in blue. I remember a lampshade, a blue lampshade, and my blue comforter. And it just really was profound. It was such a simple thing, but so profound for me. It really was.
And I mean, you've, and every time you tell your story, you shared new details that I've not heard before. So thank you for that. But, to bring it back all the way around to one, I think you're not that you're not reminiscing and remembering now, but the whole time I've known you, you're always a forward-looking person. You're visionary, looking ahead, what's next, what's down the road.
Yep.
And it seems like, that point, you felt the freedom and the space to do it when y'all moved into the apartment. And it certainly seems that you connect that experience in your own life, your lived experience, with the lived experience of a lot of the families that are buying homes for the first time with our mortgage program.
I'm more reflective now.
Yeah.
I'm more reflective. I had a moment in around 2015 when my colleague, Colleen Dudley, who runs our state organization, asked me to do a devotion at our state conference. And in a flash, I thought I could read a passage from the Bible, or I could just be completely honest about my life and my connection to Habitat. And for the first time, I don't think I've shared this with you either, that was the first time I actually shared with a group of people my story about growing up without the running water and no bathroom. It was freeing to a certain extent. It was still very difficult to do it.
Sure.
And then the next year, of course, we had the Carter Work Project. And I had another moment to recoil from the real story that I feel like is my draw to Habitat. And also the fact that we have asked our families for years and years to do testimonials and to talk about their personal journey and why they needed Habitat and how their lives were going to be different and improved because of owning a home. And I just thought, I got to do better. I got to just step out of this and do it again. And it was difficult. And it was, the commercial appeal talking to me. And I just said, okay, I'm going to do it again. I took a deep breath and I just said, I grew up in dilapidated housing. I did not have indoor plumbing and I had to use the bathroom outdoors. Still hard.
Sure.
To tell it, to talk about it. But, I'm trying to put myself in the place of our clients and to be honest with myself about my passion and where it all comes from and why this organization means so very much to me and why I've devoted 24 years and I feel like, I'm going to retire from Habitat because I don't think I could go anywhere else and have the same amount of passion for the work that I can in this space and do the same amount of good anywhere else.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think, seeing that shift in you and being willing to share your story, it certainly allows you to help others draw a connection between their own lived experience, even if it's not the same lived experience as you or our home buyers or our aging in place clients. Sometimes we'll talk about learned experience. You can, learn a little bit about others' experiences, but I do still think it helps make those connection points for people. Sometimes you have to kind of walk people through, what does housing have to do with me, or what does someone else's housing have to do with me? You have to kind of have those sort of conversations for people to kind of to draw that out from others.
Well, I think that we often get into, especially as we're doing fundraising, and we try to talk a lot about the economics of it, or the overcrowdedness, the cost burden, that sort of thing. But many years ago, I heard the term poverty of the spirit, and I think that poverty in all the different ways and shapes and forms that it looks like in so many places around the world, if it's housing conditions or lack of food or clean water. There is the physical condition of that, but there is the emotional spirit and condition of it as well, where we sit in this space and we are thinking, how can we ever get out of it? And so our friends and our donors and the corporations and all the people who are helping us do the work every day are moving people out of these poverty conditions and the emotions of it all, and giving them a break, an opportunity to live a different life. And it is like this one moment in time of being able to buy this house with a 0 interest mortgage. I mean, that is significant. Their equity is being earned so rapidly with every payment. And there's this asset that they're going to be able to leave to their families. It's like I was walking, Grizzlies players through our homes recently, and they were talking to each other and going, man, if our parents, growing up in public housing, if we had this opportunity with Habitat, can you imagine how our lives would be different? How our mothers could have, moved out of those conditions. Of course, their lives are different now. They've been able to do that because of their physical ability to play basketball, right? But everyone does not have that. And we literally are changing lives through this 0 interest mortgage, and it is powerful.
And I think, to speak about the 0 interest mortgage, and we'll dig in a little bit more about our programs, that's unique to us here in Memphis. We know there's some habitats that still have 0 interest outside of Memphis. There are some Habitat affiliates that have low interest mortgages, which still, it's all about affordability and your market and the folks that you serve in your community. But what I feel that you keep coming back to, like with the name of this podcast, it's building these connections, making the showing those links for those very well-known public figures that you just talked about, Grizzlies folks. They can still connect back and connect their experience.
Absolutely.
And speaking even about poverty, I feel like the way the words we use about it have changed a lot, even in the last 5 years. I personally prefer to say it this way now, talking about people experiencing poverty, because poverty is an experience. It happens to you. It affects you. And you were talking about just then, it's not just physical, it's the emotional, it's the mental load of that. And to be able to give a new home buyer the peace of mind and the space to say, okay, I'm not spending 60%, 50% of my take home, my income, one paycheck a month, like you said at an event we were at recently, one paycheck to just pay for my rent and my utilities. I'm at 30%, which is where across the housing market,
it's suddenly affordable.
That's where you want to be.
Right.
When you're not worried about that anymore, what can you focus on? And what can you look ahead toward? And that's, the change happens for our home buyers and aging in place clients too. I tell people this all the time. We're building homes. Yes. We're working with volunteers. Yes. We're raising money. Yes. And then the work and the change when that family moves in, that's the real work afterward. We're just a conduit and
opening the door
along the way, opening the door. That's right. Want to find great deals, declutter your home, and make a difference in Memphis? Shop or donate at your local Habitat for Humanity Restore. Both Memphis Restores offer great deals on furniture, appliances, building materials, and more. Every purchase or donation helps Habitat partner with local home buyers to build and repair safe, affordable homes. Together, we build homes, communities, and hope. Visit memphisrestore.com or follow us on social media to find your closest Habitat Restore today. So, let's come back to Memphis specifically, Memphis Habitat. Let's talk, you've already sort of alluded to it in the time you've been here and things that have changed, but let's talk a little more specifically. You've led the organization since 2001. We've existed since 1983, so almost half that time you've been here and led Memphis Habitat. Talk about the trajectory and growth of Memphis Habitat. What does that look like? What has changed?
Well, our goals are bigger. And as you know, the way we talk about our work is different. The messaging. In 2001, when I got here, I didn't know anything about physical house construction, mortgages, real estate. And, you have to cover a lot of bases working for an organization like Habitat, and you probably never become an expert on any of these things. And, as a CEO, I am mostly trying to raise money. And what I'm doing is sharing messages with folks in the community who want to see change come to other folks in our city who are disadvantaged and lack opportunity. But I thought at one time that it would be maybe difficult to convince people that Habitat was really worthy. I don't know why, but I thought, we, sort of, I think, to be honest with you, what I was hearing was a lot of discouraging comments about the people who needed our help and the whole sort of how opportunities reach certain audiences and that, pulling yourself up sort of thing. And, we're talking about an audience who need a hand up, just an opportunity. And I realized that we needed to talk about our work differently. and breaking the cycle of poverty, generational poverty, that sort of thing, and the messaging and dispelling myths. That's what I've realized that's been necessary. And I think that if somehow folks with the ability to provide for our mission and to help others was still stuck in a place where they thought they don't need our help, that I needed to do something much more powerful in the storytelling to sort of move them from those perspectives. I have said many times that in our city, if you have means, and if you work downtown and you live in Collierville and you drive down Poplar back and forth, you don't really even see the poverty. You don't even really know necessarily that it exists. And I'm trying right now to create relationships and to bring people in who have an opportunity to help me expand the messaging and to bring other people in to hear the truth about the need that still exists in our city. And so what's changed as of late is that we're using more friends to help tell the message in a way that I would not be able to do as much. And I think that's been really beneficial with either consultants or donor get a donor. Opening up your home and allowing us the opportunity to sort of expand the message. And I realized that, you've got to, and you helped me with this, you've got to have, a 3-minute pitch, a 1-minute pitch, or an elevator pitch. Because you may not get the moment again.
Right.
And you've got to dispel myths and just, take that moment to share with people about what we're trying to do and invite them in for a longer coffee.
Right.
And I've been doing a lot of that lately where I'm just having coffees and sitting down and, opening up with what we're trying to do and let people ask questions about our work. For the first, I would say, 15 years, and it seems like a long time, but I was trying to understand it. I really was. But more lately, the fundraising is conversational. And it's explaining things, and it's dispelling myths, and having people go, now I get it. Because I think the more people are confused, and the more I realize after 24 years that people are still saying, you don't give the house away. And I'm thinking, my goodness.
Never.
When will I ever get to the point where 75 or 85 or 90% of people actually understand that? So I'm still educating.
Yeah.
We're all still educating, and that won't ever change.
Every day.
Yeah.
And I think, every conversation is an opportunity to dispel those myths, educate folks about the need we're addressing, how we do the work that we do. Because like you said, every single day, I think everyone at our organization would say this, whether you're working in our restore or on the build site or wherever, folks hear Habitat and they think, Habitat builds homes. Habitat builds homes with volunteers.
It stops there.
And that's it.
At the build.
Right.
Rather than the sell.
Right. And we have always been about home buying opportunities. And as you said, we've been very intentional over the last few years in particular to kind of really try to, not pun intended, hammer that home for people. Sorry, pun intended, maybe to hammer that home, because you see someone in a photo with keys on their front porch. And we know people's attention spans are shorter and shorter every day. And it is really hard to get that across. So home buyer, mortgage, loan, we're using that sort of mortgage forward language more now than ever before. Not that the emotional part of it still isn't a part of it.
Yep.
But we can talk about the mortgages, we can talk about the loans, we can talk about the nuts and bolts of how the mechanics of how we do this. And the emotional story is the home buyers to tell. That's their life. And so I think we are making strides, but it's still hard. And on the aging in place side too, which we've talked about the mortgage program, but aging in place being a newer program to us still, we've been building new homes and selling them since 1983, but home repairs has really come online in the last 10 years or so. Talk about that a little bit and how how that has fit well into our mission and the work that we do, and what your conversations with people are like around aging in place.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things with aging in place is that it brought us back to the intersectionality of housing, decent housing, affordable housing, and a lot of other things like health. In particular with aging in place. We are, expounding on the intersectionalities, housing and education and housing and public safety. But with the aging in place, it was the health aspects. And when we went into people's homes, we thought, early on that we would see, some minor conditions of that needed improvement. But then we also saw major critical repairs that were needed to really bring the homes up to be livable again. And in the conversations, we learned that I started realizing that, older adults have respiratory issues sort of like young children. And I was that young child at one point who couldn't breathe because of the conditions of my house. And now I'm interviewing and talking to older adults who are having those same issues. But they own their homes. Their home is not necessarily dilapidated, but it's old.
Right.
And the conditions are, they're starting to have some physical conditions, and they need a new roof. And one little crack or hole in the roof is bringing moisture in, and it's creating dampness, and that is leading to, some mold or mildew buildup. These are things that, unless we're talking to our friends and donors and people who want to support us, they're not hearing that. There's no real opportunity in an elevator to dig deep into these things.
Not always.
Which is why building connection is such a great opportunity for us to be able to do that.
And I think, what's interesting
to expound on the issues.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting too about aging in place, while the home buying program, they both tug at people's heartstrings, of course, and that a lot of times is what leads people to maybe make a gift or get involved for the first time. Aging in place, to me, people sometimes get it really quickly when you do get the opportunity to talk about it, because I feel like it may not be in an elevator when you get to have these conversations, but everyone has known an older adult at every income range who needs some things done to their home. Maybe it's not as severe as a roof.
We just generally see the older population as vulnerable.
Of course.
And in so many different ways.
As you age, what you need in your home changes. It could be grab bars. It could be wider doorways. It could be a different toilet or a chair in your bathroom, a ramp. Whether you're in a wheelchair or not, sometimes a ramp is better for you than steps because of your joints or what have you. So I think people grasp that pretty quickly because they've probably known a parent or a grandparent who was like, I don't want to leave my home. This is my home. Well, that applies to everyone.
Correct.
If they own a home, they've cared for it, they've loved it, they've worked for it. They don't want to leave it. And in the instance of the clients we serve, they may not have a different option because of their low fixed income and the low value perhaps of their property to, buy a different home.
And I'm glad you mentioned the value of the property because, the initial intent is about the individual who is living in a home that is not working for them anymore.
Right.
But then now, with more research and evaluation and conversation and investigation, we realize that we're also adding to the economics of a street.
You're preserving
or the community. Yes.
Yeah.
By preserving homes. And so that's a story I also like to tell, especially to corporate executives or politicians about how the money is working. Certainly, they're going to care about an older adult, but we also care about, the broader impact that it's having on communities.
And the long range, forward looking, what about the next generation of that property? What happens when someone, for whatever reason, you will eventually leave that home. A person will move on from a home.
Yes.
What then? I know we at Memphis Habitat and anyone across the Habitat network who does this kind of work believes this, that, we're helping retain value, helping them retain their independence while they're there. But then in the future, is it something that they pass down to their family?
Correct.
Is it something that doesn't attract blight in the community or doesn't become vacant and attract blight and other issues that are connected to that? And how does that kind of ripple effect, spread?
Yes.
And house by house, block by block, street by street, etc. Yeah. It is much more than that. And you're so right. Your audience matters for your message, you know? And I think the preservation piece will be talked about more and more because that's numbers,
Yes.
People and place. Place. And so I think we'll be talking about that more and more. It's a program that's firmly ensconced in our work now, for sure.
And I tell you, it's not easy. I think one positive from the sort of operating side, how we do it, is as we're raising money, most often the dollars that we attract for aging in place are not the same ones that we attract for the homeownership program. So they're not necessarily competing. And so that's been really good. But still, there's just not enough of it.
Right.
There's not enough of it. And I know, I tell this all the time. I share all the time with folks that if they see that we served, 235 older adults in a fiscal year, the need was 1,235.
Exactly. If not,
if we had the capacity,
that's right,
and the means to do it. And that whenever we open up the phone lines and we have people call in, we're always overwhelmed. And the older adults are overwhelmed. They are desperate. They are calling. A family member is maybe calling on their behalf. And when we have to shut down the phone lines because we have enough, we've reached our capacity, what happens to them then? There's a real weight.
There is.
That we all carry. There's the beautiful part of, we got to serve 200 or 250, but at the same time, we're thinking, oh my gosh, there were another 1,000 people that we could have served.
Yeah, and I know internally we talk all the time, and we'll continue to talk all the time. How do we raise more funds so we can serve more people? How do we stretch the dollars? How do we leverage and stack the dollars for your nonprofit folks? Leverage, we talk about that all the time, and how we can do more and serve more and make it so folks don't feel frustrated or discouraged.
Yeah.
And, we know the reality is when we started this program, we thought there were probably over 7,000 people in our community that could possibly need this work.
Correct.
We've served over 1,500, which is amazing. Bet how many people have aged into the work in that 10 years. So, if anyone out there has like $100 million, that would probably help to do this work, right?
And the thing is, housing stock is going to continue to age.
Of course.
Because of, time, the way...
Time marches on,
Time
right?
marches on. And then people are going to continue to age. And so the issue isn't going to change. It isn't going to go away suddenly. We're talking about very low income folks who are living on about $1,000 a month. And it's going to always be needed. And I just don't see how we could ever walk away from aging in place. It's just too important.
And I think, it was when we started this work over 10 years ago, it was a change and a shift. There may be folks who are like, oh, mission creep. Is it mission creep? I don't think any of us ever thought that because I
never did.
I know we didn't because we started looking, we know housing's a continuum. We were creating new home buying opportunities and creating new property taxpayers, all those sorts of things. But what about existing properties? They're still in that's the housing market too.
Yes.
And what role could Habitat play in coming at it from both directions? Because we know the work that we do then affects other parts of the housing market, affordable rental, people moving from starter homes to a different home. All those things are interconnected.
There are all sorts of housing issues from city to city. And I think it's a good thing that Habitat affiliates across the country work differently based on the needs of their community.
Yeah.
And so there are markets where doing repairs is just not a thing because affordability is such a crisis.
Right.
And they really need to push all of their resources and work into building and selling homes for families. We're doing a little bit of both. And I'm really proud that we can continue to do Aging in Place along with the Affordable Mortgage Program. Because it's greatly needed.
It's greatly needed. And I'm glad you brought up the point that Habitats, we're one Habitat. We are part of Habitat for Humanity International's global family, but we do have the ability. We work in our own communities. We're on the ground every day, and so it does look different city to city. It wouldn't make sense for a home we build in Memphis to be exactly the same as a home in Los Angeles, or even in Nashville, or south of here, north of here. Our homes are built differently, and our markets are all different.
But I think I want to just add to that. I think it is an important statement that you're making or point that you're making, that we're not just doing whatever, right? We have done assessments in the community. We have a senior director of research and evaluation who's been on the team for over 15 years, and we're using research and data to drive our work, and we're focused on what is important in the affordable or housing space based on what's needed, and that's what drives us.
Absolutely, and we talk about this all the time, but that we are going. We a lot of times in Memphis specifically, I can't necessarily speak to everyone else, but we're going into communities that have maybe not seen new home investment in a long time.
Absolutely,
and those are community. They want that. And it will help them in a lot of different ways for new homes to be built, new families to buy, because the population will age. That's how neighborhoods ebb and flow. That's just the nature of it. And for Habitat in Memphis to come into communities where a builder who builds a few homes a year of a different scale and scope for a different different buyer, they're not incentivized to build in a community where we build. But by Habitat going and building in those communities, it strengthens the whole housing ecosystem in our city. And I mean, we tell people that all the time, but we'll keep telling people that all the time because you have to, it's out of sight, out of mind.
And then there's the vacant and abandoned lots issue. That's where we're building.
Sometimes
on lots that have been, left abandoned for years and decades, and nobody else was going to go and build there,
Right.
So,
and we just a few months ago, in fact, or earlier this year, we pushed down a property. We acquired a vacant property that had been vacant for decades that happened to be right in the middle of a street.
It was an eyesore. It was a safety issue.
Absolutely.
Right.
And now we've built a new home that a buyer will buy soon.
Yes.
And
that's such a great story.
It is a great story. But it speaks to the depth and breadth of the work that we do. Did you know Habitat builds new and sells affordable homes?
And that we're concerned about blight and bringing down,
blight.
dilapidated structures,
because
making them viable again.
Right. It's all connected. And Habitat is just, you said it earlier, we have different elevator pitches, honestly, because we do a lot. And for the Habitats that have restores, which we do, we have 2 here in Memphis, that's a whole nother element that a lot of nonprofits don't, have in the mix. But it's all still about supporting the mission and coming back to drive revenue and drive support to do this work, because it's the only way we can do it.
Correct.
So we were talking about challenges, and there's a challenge I want to kind of talk about with you before we move on to a few more questions. Let's talk about the appraisal gap, because with Habitats being hyper-local and the issues that affect them and why they build, the value of their homes, how much it costs to build.
Yes.
Talk about the appraisal gap and what that is for us here and why it's something we talk about more now than we ever did.
Yeah. Again, every market's different. And then in each market, things are different based on, say, building in the city proper and in the communities where we're building versus surrounding suburban areas where there is no appraisal issue. However, in the areas where we're building, we're taking these vacant lots, putting a beautiful Habitat home on them. We're spending what it costs to build, whatever that is. And say maybe it's $180,000 or $200,000. However, because there is a lack of new construction, other new house construction in the area, or we're the only builder, and the appraisals on the homes next door are so drastically lower, we are not able to get the appraisals that we need on our new home. And so we have seen, say, over the last 10 years, appraisal gaps of $20,000 to $30,000 per unit. And we have estimated over the last 10 years that we've lost easily $6 million because of the appraisal gap. And, fortunately now we have in our friends at THDA an appraisal gap program that is supporting that phenomena. But, we had to sort of rattle some chains and make some noise and talk about it so that the state agency and others realized that it was a real issue for us.
Right.
Because it was sort of unique to Habitat.
And the appraisal gap really is a relative term, I have found, because what the appraisal gap means, as you're saying, for us here in Memphis, for those that maybe aren't familiar with all the nuts and bolts of Habitat, we sell our homes at appraised value, or at least we do here. Our homes are sold at appraised value.
Yeah.
If it costs us $200,000 to build the home, and we raise the money in one way or another to build the home. It's not free to build homes. We build the home, $200,000, but it appraises for $150,000. Yeah, that's what we sell it for. So Habitat, we are not for profit, certainly, but we also have to be sustainable for the next day and to serve the next family, build the next home, create the next mortgage, and it all, it's perpetual. That appraisal gap issue for us is unique in a market like ours, where even in maybe Nashville, perhaps, I don't know, but in other parts of the country for sure, it might cost them $400,000 to build a home, but it appraises for $6,000.
Yes.
But
it's all about affordability.
It's all about affordability.
And I do know that we have friends in other parts of the country. We have colleagues in Iowa who they may not have the same situation. However, they might be selling for less than the appraised value
to keep it
because
affordable.
the applicant can only afford that $150,000. But they are doing it because they can find a subsidy so that they are not losing on the construction side. So if you can make the numbers work, your formula can be whatever it needs to be.
Right.
Yeah. So
the capital stack can be really complicated.
It certainly can be.
And
I remember when I first got here, I was hearing of friends out in Southern California who were having these, balloon payments at the end of a 30-year mortgage, where it's like you're paying for your house over 30 years, and then suddenly when you're done, there's another big amount at the end that you have to refinance. It wasn't going away. And so every market looks different. Affordability is, shows up how it's going to show up based on the city. Yeah. Yeah, and the market dynamics.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm glad we did, because we don't get to dig in except in this long form. Let's talk about. We've talked about challenges. We've talked about history. You mentioned, of course, that we hosted the Carter Work Project in 2016, which was a big point in the trajectory of our organization and our profile. But what is next for Memphis Habitat? What do you know that's ahead? What do you foresee that's ahead for us?
Gosh, that's a loaded question.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm here. I've got to tee them up for you to to answer it. But we've made some big we've got big plans. We know that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that what I'm most excited about is our large comprehensive campaign. And it's a very big goal. It's $62 million over 5 years. And it basically is us stretching ourselves to serve more people and to do more education and enlightenment and helping more people understand what we do, like through Building Connection podcast. What's next is how do we get there? What strategies, what unique opportunities do we create to bring more people in? Mm-hmm. And so some of those things are some unique affinity builds that we're creating, where we're working with, CEOs. And we're doing something called CEO Build that's been very successful with some friends and colleagues in other markets, expanding on our Women Build and growing it and making it not just based on seeing an entertainer on a stage talking, but how do we get into more empowering, making it an event about empowering women, that sort of thing. And so I would say that I'm excited about bringing more people in to the organization in ways that are meaningful to them by going to them where they are. We're looking to do a faith build. It's been a long time since we've really involved the faith community, and how can we do that in a way that is inclusive? We call ourselves ecumenical, and we want to live that out in a way that brings in people of all faiths who can touch our work and help us do what we're doing. So those are some of the things I'm excited about.
I think you're right. And with this campaign, which we did just announce a few months ago in the fall of 2025, it's ambitious, but that's the intent. It's intended to be transformational. We want to get to the point. We want to build 150 new homes over the next 5 years and serve 1,250 aging in place clients over the next 5 years. And undergird our organizational sustainability, shore up the restore, more earned revenue, all those things. But it really all comes back to building up our capacity and our ability to continue to serve and be here and sustain our work, because
for the long term.
For the long term, which we certainly know we will be here, but
But how will it look?
How will it look? It changes all the time, but to be at that level that we know is a good, sustainable level to keep the motion of the organization going.
Correct.
So we can plan for the future even after that, because we know when the 5 years is over, we'll have a whole new thing. We'll have a whole new thing.
What happens then?
Because we're coming up on 45 years in a couple of years. And so 50... for Memphis Habitat International's 50th in 2026, but that ours is looming large too.
It is.
I don't know what party we'll have for that, but we'll figure it out.
I can't wait.
I know. Well, I just really am excited about where we're headed. We're on our way. We're gonna reach that goal.
I'm excited
because the need is there.
I'm exhausted from what we're already doing.
Exhausted and excited,
and then I'm excited for what is coming and what we know we have to do.
Yes.
What we have to do, because so many people are counting on us.
Absolutely.
And so we have to keep exploring, being, creative, and going to people in new and unique ways to get the message out.
Absolutely.
And to invite them in.
Absolutely. We believe our vision, a world where everyone has a decent place to live. Yeah. So we invite anyone who believes that everyone deserves a decent place, affordable, safe place to live.
To join the march.
Come on.
Yep.
Habitat's a movement, right?
It's a movement.
It's a movement. So we're coming up on the last segment. Dwayne, you know what the last segment is.
I do.
You're usually the person leading it, but I might,
And even though I ask everybody else, I haven't actually.
You're like, what am I going to say?
I haven't practiced my answer, so these would be, definitely what I'm thinking in this moment.
I like stream of consciousness. That's good. Yeah. So our bring it back to home segment, because we got to bring it all the way around. We got to bring it back. We got to run it back. Talk about housing and home. You know the drill. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I might have mixed them up a scotch, but we'll see. You're free to answer them however you like, whether that's personal, professional, combination, whatever rings true. Bring in Habitat, information from elsewhere, whatever you want to do. So the first one, and you know what it is. What does home mean to you, Dwayne, or what do you think of when you hear the word home?
Is it a one-word answer?
You can say whatever you want. It's your podcast. You can say whatever you want.
I think There are a few. The first is refuge. Another is comfort and safety, and entertainment. I haven't heard anybody say entertainment.
No one said
yet.
entertainment. I mean, but that's
Because I like to have my friends and family
yeah.
come over. And, I take that back to some interviews that we've done with some of our senior clients, where we have helped them improve their living conditions. And we've asked these sort of open-ended qualitative questions. And, someone says, oh, I now can, make Sunday dinner. And I can have the grandkids come over, that sort of thing. That's important, to feel like you can invite people in, that it's a place where you can laugh and be yourself. And I say that because there was a time when I didn't feel like I could do that. And I wasn't comfortable inviting people in. And I was full of anxiety. And I was afraid to have people come in. And so now I welcome it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Comfort. I mean, I think entertainment is part of being comfortable.
Yes.
And feeling safe, because safety is not just physical safety, it's emotional safety and
that's true.
That warm, fuzzy feeling that you get when you're hanging out.
That's absolutely it.
Watching your favorite show, The Golden Girls, as I know.
My Golden Girls.
Your Golden Girls.
Yeah, it's my go-to. Makes me happy.
And see, you have the space to relax and do that, right?
Yes.
So we were kind of talking about this a little bit.
Theirs was all about home too.
It was.
Right?
It was, right?
It was all about home.
And community and
a space where they could be comfortable and live out their golden years.
That's right.
In a space that felt comfortable to them.
Yeah.
It's a great connection. We'll have to have a Golden Girls marathon. Okay.
I mean, I wonder if they
that
had
a
share height
fundraiser?
toilets at the Golden Girls home.
No.
That's an aging in place inside.
Because there was an episode where they had a low boy toilet that was bright blue. And I thought, why would older people have a low boy toilet?
They hadn't had it. They had
it
not
wasn't
had
a thing
accessibility
yet. The 18-inch accessible toilet.
Yet. Oh, that's really niche. I love that. So, I think one of your strengths, Dwayne, and I already mentioned this earlier, is that you're always looking ahead. But beyond that, you're not really bound. I don't find that you're bound by the parameters of we've always done it this way. That is not.
No.
That's not how you operate. You certainly look at best practices and historicals and things like that. But we've never done this before. It's going to be hard. Does it really scare you? Sometimes
Not
it
at all.
scares me.
Yep.
When you tell me we've got a big project
the
coming.
good thing, Jessica, is that I have you. I can have these crazy ideas, and then you tether me, and it's like, Dwayne, I don't know. Maybe not.
Maybe no.
not.
But it has served our organization well. We've taken big swings.
Yes.
Inviting a president to build with us, being a huge one.
When that wasn't a thing.
And we certainly still talk about that every day here. But I think you may know what I'm going to ask you next, because we always ask people this, but I've changed it a little bit for you. I'm going to ask you to dream big, which you love to do. If there were no limitations, and you can keep this Memphis specific if you want, it's up to you, but if there were no limitations, funding, capacity, how would you solve what we call the housing crisis? And it can be what Habitat addresses, or more than that. What would you do? What would you like to see, and what would that do?
Yeah. I now realize how tough this is as a question.
It's a hard question. I mean,
since I've been asking it to other people.
I really
now I'm on the other side,
really
so I'm like, this is hard.
But what would you want to see happen here in Memphis specifically to make a huge change?
I think that the economics would look different. I think that there would be many more resources pushed into affordable home ownership. There is a place for affordable home ownership as well as affordable rental, because it is true, probably everybody is not ready to buy a home. There's a lot of independent responsibilities that come with your own house, and being a good neighbor and all those things. But I think that we can do better as a city. We already benefit, and the city is good to us in our housing and community development. But I think that if we're going to really see ourselves moving to the next level of what a prosperous city looks like, then there have to be more resources to bring more people up and carry them along with all the other beautiful, wonderful things that are happening, and not leave so many people behind. I want us to have the arts institutions. I want us to have public safety. I want us to thrive as a community, but we can't get there when there are so many people still desperate for opportunities to buy a home or to have a decent place to live. And I just want to see more resources pushed into it. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think that we have to keep having the conversations. We have to keep bringing it up in a forum like we are doing today. And, I think that the next campaign, as big as this one is, has to be bigger.
I'm sure it will be.
It has to be bigger, and we have to encourage folks to understand that, by elevating people in our community who have the least, that we are moving ourselves to a much more vibrant and prosperous city. I have been in the room with politicians lately in this season of people running for elected office, and I keep hearing them say things about, we can be the next Atlanta or the next Nashville, the next great southern city. But that isn't going to happen unless we bring everybody along. And I want to encourage anybody who's listening to this to realize that has to be true. I have seen in cities like Atlanta where their mayor is absolutely focused on thousands of additional affordable units. Not that we're not doing it here.
Right.
But they're doing it in a way that seems like, wow, how can that be? And there's a new press conference every 6 to 12 months where the mayor is saying, oh, we just built another 5,000 affordable units. How can we get to that? How can we get to that place? I don't know what it is, but I know that we have a mayor right now who comes from this space of affordable housing, and that he is passionate about creating more units, but it has to be done in a multitude of ways where it's not just city coffers investing in that. We need corporations and foundations doing as much as they can. We will implement.
Absolutely.
And other affordable housing organizations. It's not just Habitat.
Right.
And it can't just be us.
We're a piece of the puzzle.
One spoke in the wheel.
That's right. Well, I think, I like a both and attitude, or a yes and attitude, if you like to improv.
Yep.
Why can't it be both and? Why can't not just the next other city fill in the blank?
Yes.
What's the next Memphis look like? Right?
And I have to say, if our elected officials are going to invoke other cities that they want to model, then we have to think about some of the things that they are doing around affordable housing, some of the opportunities that they are creating. Other affordable housing trusts are much larger than ours, and the investments are bigger, whether the states are investing in the local economies or whatever. So I don't know what that will look like. But if people are listening and going, why are you comparing us to, well, everybody's doing it. And so we all need to be thinking about it, and we don't need to leave people behind.
And there are good ideas, I think, everywhere. You can look at examples in different communities and different approaches. New home construction, aging in place, especially on the healthcare side, we talk about that a lot. How does the healthcare industry invest, whether it's a hospital, a payer, an insurer?
Yep.
There's space at the table for everyone.
I think that, people will always say in this space, you're not going to you're not going to get if you don't ask.
That's right.
Right? If we don't make the case, and that if we don't say thank you for what you're doing, but we need to do more the next time.
Yeah.
And I also think in the more provocative space, well, I just think that we're not going to prosper if we don't provoke just a little bit.
And you have to ask the questions.
And that if we don't go back and say, okay, well then if you want to compare us to this other market that's doing well and doing these innovative things, let's bring those to Memphis as well.
What's different? What could we try ourselves?
And yeah.
But I think, leading into the next question I was already going to ask you, and we've talked about this all throughout this conversation, and the whole point of this podcast is to try to make those connections. Like we've talked about housing and health, certainly, but other issues, maybe housing and the workforce, housing and attracting new businesses to Memphis, whatever industry you're in, there's an issue that housing connects with.
Yeah.
I think that, we agree on that. But what is the connection point with the whole point of this podcast and the name, building connection, trying to draw out those intersections for today's conversation? If there was one point, if there's a couple, that's cool too. What one takeaway would you want someone listening or watching the podcast, whether it's now, because we're recording this in December of 25, if you hear it now or if you hear it, anytime in the future, what would you want people to take away?
Well, I think you kind of helped me with my answer, which is the intersectionality of it all. And the point is, when you are helping with affordable home ownership, if anyone invests in what we're doing, then you are also helping with public safety or blight or health. All of those things, because there is an intersectionality and a connection between what we're doing and all those other issues that exist in the world.
Absolutely. Housing is connected to everything, and everything's connected to housing. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So last question of our official list of questions. Okay. You know what it is. It's a fill in the blank.
And it is one word.
You can do one, we do what we want here.
Pressure's on.
You could do what you want. You could do a couple answers. I'm good. Blank starts with a home.
Aspiration.
Oh, no one said that.
Okay.
Yet.
Good.
Aspiration starts with a home, and it comes back, it connects back to you looking forward a lot, aspiring and planning for the future, dreaming for the future. Yep. And we're doing that here, certainly.
We are.
And we know that that's what our home buyers are striving to do as well.
Yep.
So
if I could leave you with, I was just thinking, when my family had the fire and I finally got into that apartment and I had my own private space, I feel like, one of the things I was doing is I was sitting on the side of the bed thinking, wow, it's almost like I didn't know I could have this. And now I do. And I feel like I started to dream in those moments about what my future could look like when the physical conditions no longer sort of confined me, and that I could just sort of break out of and dream a little. And that's where the dreaming started. And here we are today, still doing the same thing. We live practically every day in the implementation of our work, but I am definitely also every day dreaming about how we can serve more families and create more opportunities through decent housing.
Absolutely. Aspiration. Aspiration starts with a home.
And removing the confinement.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Dwayne, for letting me turn the tables on you.
Thank you. This was cool. I'll be excited to get back to asking the questions.
I know. I'll give you. I do like these microphones and headphones, though. I'll let you take it back over next time. We've been having these conversations for 15 years. You and I.
Yes.
It's just never on camera.
Yep.
But I think it's really great for folks who know us and folks who maybe don't know us at Memphis Habitat or Habitat in general to hear from you, because you've been here so long, and to hear your perspective and your vision. Because we know the need remains and continues here in Memphis, in Tennessee, in the U.S., around the world, and
Absolutely.
Habitat's going to be here.
Yes.
We know. So before we go, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience, whether they're hearing this now or in the future? Is there anything else you want to say, any calls to action, anything you would want people to look into?
I just think, well, first I'll say that all of the help that we need is not monetary.
That's right.
We need volunteers. We need advocates, whether it's in the public policy space around, legislation that can support our work. We do need contributions. Obviously, every nonprofit does. We need prayers. We need warriors. We need people who care about the Memphis community and want to make it better, to just step up. If you see an opportunity, if you see an opening, you see a way that you can help, walk through the door and help us do more. Because literally none of the families that we've talked about serving, on nearly 650 homes built, over 1,500 repairs, none of that can happen without the community and without the people who are listening and people who want to see other folks have a better life.
Yeah.
Just walk through. We are opening the door.
Opening doors.
Walk through.
Walk through it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. So, Dwayne, again, thanks for being the guest this time. He will be back in the host seat the next time around. But as always, thank you, listeners, viewers, for checking out and tuning into Building Connection. Please follow us, share, leave us a review, all the things. And you can email us feedback, suggestions for future guests at podcast@memphishabitat.com. If you want to learn more about Memphis Habitat, memphishabitat.com. And we will just see you next time.
All right.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Building Connection, a podcast from Habitat for Humanity of Greater Memphis. Our executive producer is Jessica Hord, VP of Brand Strategy. This podcast is produced by Forever Ready Productions, a mission-driven production company headquartered right here in Memphis. They tell stories that inspire action, believing that together we can build collective purpose and impact. Since 1983, Habitat for Humanity of Greater Memphis has worked to help more people in the Memphis area access decent, affordable housing through new homes, affordable mortgages, and home repairs. Every safe, affordable home sparks wider change, leading to better health, education, and well-being, more economic growth, and less poverty. Peace of mind and the ability to focus on what matters most, it all starts with a home. To learn more about Memphis Habitat, sign up for our newsletter and get involved. Visit memphishabitat.com. Together, we can build homes, communities, and hope.